Hey everyone, welcome to episode 238 of 15 with Andy, Randy, and Jeff. And as a continuation on last week, my daily X number of days until Christmas committee made sure that I am aware that there's only 2 days left of Christmas as of this episode reaching your earbuds. Amazon Prime is pretty much a thing of the past at this point, and those barren Christmas Eve aisles at Walgreens to start coming into focus a little clearer with every passing hour. So I hope that you're not like me and you still have shopping to do. I can't believe I just said that. I have shopping to do 2 days before Christmas because it's been that kind of year. Welcome to 2020. All right. Before we get started this week, I wanted to go back a few weeks ago to Doug Spinella's response to our whole life takeaway, and that COVID hasn't been all that bad, or all of it hasn't been bad, that he had noticed some improvements in his life. And I caught up with him as he was a worship host here, I believe, last week. And I asked him to respond with his top 3 things that he felt made the cut. And maybe why the rest of us, if we haven't thought about it, maybe we should be looking at 2020 and during this whole COVID pandemic. Maybe we need a little help finding some of these things that, maybe aren't so obvious to us or maybe hasn't happened to us. And maybe we can resonate, we can look forward to, or try to find these in our own lives to make, whatever's left of the pandemic and just maybe to find a little hope and a little fun, maybe a little light at the end of the tunnel as we close into Christmas. So he sent me 3 different voicemails with his 3 things. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the first voicemail. And let's cue up track 1.
All right, Randy, here's a few things for you. When I think about how COVID has affected us, or even myself, positively, I think one of the things is, I know we were all cooped up for a while, but one of the things that I've really embraced even more so is the simple trips to run errands. And not just the aspect of being appreciative of it, but more realizing that when I'm with my wife or my family, making the most out of those moments. And now I kind of have a saying that I enjoy as much traveling the world with my wife as I do when I go to the store, making the most of those moments despite wherever you might be.
I like that one. Find the little moments in life because it seems like those pass way, way, way too quickly, and maybe we just don't give them enough credit for that. And I'm picturing Doug and Beth walking down the aisle at Publix, arm in arm, each with a little basket, just like for their trip for the day, maybe getting some produce. I don't know. But that one made me smile. And, then I started to think about all the little things in my week where you can find that, things that maybe used to be the mundane or the monotonous, that now maybe there's a little extra fun or we look at them a little bit differently. I like that one. All right, let's jump into number 2.
Another way that I've seen the positive impact of COVID, I think for myself, but also I've noticed it in the community as a whole, I find myself being a little bit more patient and tolerant to things, whether it's service-related issues or, maybe something's not going my way as quickly as I want it to. I find myself being more patient and realizing that people in their workplace and so forth are under a lot of stress. A lot of people are skeleton crews of what they used to be in their jobs, so they have a lot more responsibilities, and they're trying to juggle a lot of things. So it's made me be a little bit more conscious of that, which is a good thing.
How about you guys? Have you found any more patience?
Yeah, maybe in some ways more patience, in other ways less patience. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, Doug, you're a good man. If you're listening, Mr. Spinelli, you're a good man that you have found patience. Because I don't know what it would take for me to find real patience. It's apparently bigger than a pandemic. Let's just go there. All right, third and final clip.
I think what it's also done for me from a standpoint of spirituality is, I'm always been a believer of, focusing around loving your neighbor and loving God. But I think during this time, it's even impacted me even more so of what God really designed for us, by being kind or taking time to help, being more compassionate and tolerant of your neighbors as well during this COVID period has actually brought quite a bit of joy additional relationships, grown deeper in some of my existing neighbor relationships. So that was something else that was good.
That's a pretty good list. You're making the most of the small moments with your family and your wife. You're finding more patience and tolerance in yourself and even in the community. So I guess there's other people that are finding patience as well as Doug. And then, spirituality, being a more compassionate neighbor. And I think that, we probably should be all of these things a lot more than maybe we have or maybe we thought we should be. But then realizing that just being more compassionate through spirituality and that God wants us to love first and love those in our circles, our family, our neighbors, both, he mentioned new and existing relationships, and all that benefits just from the God's love through us and that he's given us. And so, Doug, thanks so much for the feedback as always. I really appreciate it. And these are great things that we can kind of start our focus and intentionality and maybe reap some positive benefits, or at least gird our loins with a few extra weapons as we head into the unknown of 2021. So, Doug, thanks again so much for sharing. All right, this week, which of course, it looks a little bit like last week, as we're in another installment of our Expect the Unexpected series, except this time we have unexpected responsibility. And at first, I wasn't sure what the story was going to be within the Christmas story. It wasn't immediately obvious. And I thought, an unexpected responsibility. I'm like, man, this sounds like work. Like, are we already into I'm assuming at the beginning of the year, we must be doing a series on giving, right?
Of course.
So I'm like, oh, right. Oh, we are. Are you serious?
No. It'll be a little different this year. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I just assumed that. I'm like, man, maybe we're getting to it early, but we're going to hit that end of year instead of starting off the year with it. But it turns out we were talking about shepherds this week, and full transparency here, I was not at church this week, and I was in another church this past Sabbath. And we had some family that were all wanting to go to church, and we ended up with, there was some Sabbath schools, and the kiddos wanted to go to Sabbath school. We ended up someplace else, and they were talking about shepherds too. So apparently, I'm sorry. They talked about the shepherds, but theirs was based on the Magi. So we're all in this together, and it was kind of cool to just realize we don't often think about what our other church neighbors might be doing, but they definitely were expecting the unexpected at that church because their message was unique as well as ours was. But Andy, as I was listening to the message, I found it very easy to resonate with the shepherds as you laid out their mindset prior to the visit from the heavenly hosts. Why would they expect anything but the usual, the humdrum, you're on the bottom of the rung unless you're at the top of the ladder, the view never changes type of mentality kind of thing? We all feel that way about ourselves and our status, even if we had some success in our lives. But expecting that anything out of the norm would happen, that night or any other night for that matter.
Sure.
And you start to think about it and go, yeah, man, it's amazing how so many people missed the birth of the Savior in the first Advent. And you're thinking, boy, it's probably not that much of a reach to figure out that there could be a whole bunch of people that are going to miss the second Advent, right?
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a big reach. At least, but and part of it is because Christ was very clear in predicting that it will be an unexpected event. It'll just be another day.
Well, that's true.
We look at all the prophecies and we think we can sort of get it all lined up and have it all figured out. And Jesus said it's going to happen in an hour when you don't think it's going to happen.
That was kind of nice of him to give us the warning, though, because they were just working off of the prophecies and all that they had, and they missed it.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's enough, though. It doesn't seem like enough. It seems like we should be on some kind of an Indiana Jones crusade and looking for clues and things that we can, when we put the puzzle in, the light shines and it puts a reflection on the wall that tells us what we're doing and when we should expect it. But I don't think we're getting anything like that, are we?
I don't think so. Yeah, the fact that the God has already solved this problem and the ordinary can have its place now. We don't need some big deals, big happening. God's already taken care of that, and now now he just sort of like, can you just love each other and get along and, care for people and do good stuff and,
And the answer to that is?
Well, not so well.
That's what I thought.
That is an interesting thing to think about, though, Andy, because his first time here, his first coming to Earth, had a really direct, impacting kind of purpose. I like the idea. Are you referring to the fact that now he's just coming to just take us home, or I mean, is that not a big deal? Or I'm curious because it is an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, Andy, is it a big deal or not?
Yeah, well, it's a big deal. But the resurrection's a pretty big deal. When everybody comes back to life, it's a big deal. Okay, but
right.
But I think that there's this penchant for the looking for the big deal, looking for a big showy thing to happen, and it seems like that post his death and resurrection, we still look for this big deal, and like the big deal behind us, Christ reconciling all the world to Himself is the big deal.
Yeah, I like that a lot though, because what we tend to do is we tend to make events as opposed to this is just the extension of his presence. Yeah. In other words, he came and he's still here. It's just that you're going to see him come in a different, now the coming is a reestablishing, I guess, of his presence, which has always been. I don't know. I really like the way you're going with this. This is good. Because it doesn't create these monumental events that we have to prepare for. We are living in it, which is kind of a cool idea that the shepherds were in that context, that he was the reason why we want you to come see this is because nobody else is available. This is happening for all people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do like that idea. That is a cool idea.
Well, ordinary guys on an ordinary night, truly getting an extraordinary experience, unquestionably. But I don't know. I think oftentimes we think about our responsibility when this is called an unexpected responsibility. When the shepherds have this responsibility to tell people about the baby and the angel visits and what happened,
right?
I think sometimes we think about our responsibility as followers of Jesus to get ourselves lined up with Jesus. And so and an inordinate amount of time is spent in trying to straighten ourselves out. And guys like, well, you're missing this thing. I've straightened you out. Okay. I've set everything straight. When he says that he's reconciled, he's straightened everything out. And now just go tell people the good stuff. This is good stuff to tell. And don't try to, your responsibility is to share the amazing story, not try to fix yourself.
Oh yeah.
That's a tall.
Or figure out why you were invited.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Good
if
point.
This was a Hollywood movie and a sequel, the first one might have been called A New Hope, and the second one would have been called Tough Luck, Sucker. You didn't make the cut. All hope is lost after the second one. If you're not paying attention and you're not just whatever, it's over. I don't know. But I like what you're saying, because it is, if you look at it from the way Jeff just described and then you followed up with, it's pretty cool. Unless you look at it as, well, it's doomsday, because if I miss out, I miss out. It's over. This isn't the beginning. The first Advent was cool. Second one is the end.
Yeah. Oh man, I love to ask parents of children, what would your child have to do for you to never want to see him again? And parents, at least decent parents, shake their head and can't figure out what that would be.
Oh, good. I was going to answer your question. I'm glad I didn't say anything.
Yeah, and we,
Woo! Now that I know what the answer
I
is.
didn't know it was rhetorical.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me off the hook early there, Andy.
but I mean, if we messed up human beings, fallen and sinful, and oftentimes loving with very conditional love, if we don't want to think about never seeing our kids again, what is the God of the universe who defines himself as love? He says God is love. And so if he's all the things we talk about in 1 Corinthians 13, if that's who he is, I just wish we could take some of the fear out of his return.
Yeah.
No, you know, this is a good guy wanting to get with his kids.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I hear that. That's I like that. I just think it's so easy to think about it the other way that we often miss that part of it. And yeah, it was really cool for the first Advent, and we've known this story, and even as when we were kids, I was thinking about it as I was preparing for today, and how many times have growing up in a Christian school, and how many times did we put on the shepherd's outfits? Mom finds an old bathrobe of your dad's that's too long, and it's too big, and you've got the towel over your head with the someone else's belt wrapped around it. I mean, we had some pretty crude costumes to be. You didn't have to have much to be a shepherd, because anything that looked old and not like fitting was like, yeah, that's probably what the shepherds looked like. And
it was easy to costume.
Right, it was perfect. But how cool! I used to think that the shepherds were so cool, because you're thinking to yourself, man, all these guys had to do, they got to hang out around the campfire, and they had this cool get up going, and you hung out with your friends, and really all you do is keep an eye on the sheep. And then, of course, we grow up and our perspective changes, and, adult realizations set in. Mm-hmm. But they bring us a new view of God, that he chose these shepherds to be the mouthpiece to this world that prophecy had been fulfilled. His best and most benevolent, loving promise ever had been kept. And all of a sudden, in the possessions of humans was God's only son, his only son. And, he could have chosen anyone, royalty. He could have chosen angels across the globe in ways we probably can't fathom.
He could have just woken everybody in the whole planet up and just said, hey,
yeah,
Jesus is here.
You said he really wanted the one-on-one. And to me, it was just a remembering that in his kingdom, the first are going to be last, and the last are going to be first. And it seemed like it was really the walking the walk for our benefit as we looked at this story. And it's really powerful when you stop and think of it in a world that we live in now that's a do as I say, not as I do, from leaders in every corner of the world, even in church sometimes. And when you think about it that way, it just packs the same power as it did that night for the shepherds outside of Bethlehem. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, God had to come to ordinary people, because there's this crazy thing that when he chooses people, the chosen nation of Israel, they move from awe that they are chosen, you've chosen us, to over time believing they deserve to have been chosen.
Well, yeah.
And so that to get them to be able to share the good news would be really challenging. And here's just these ordinary shepherds out doing their job, and that's who God says, hey, let's have them announce this.
And it just seems, it's almost, again, like a Hollywood story that you would never write, because who would do this? No one would even think to write this, because it's ludicrous. But yet, it, to me, again, I loved what you were saying before, because it just reminds us that God, from the beginning, has wanted to do this one-on-one that you talked about with each of us. He did it in spite of the lies of Adam and Eve in the garden, despite the 40 years, like you mentioned, the wilderness Israelites, who over time just, spent more time pushing him away and thinking they had it all together than actually desiring him as their only God. And even the disciples, he shared everything with them every day, and ultimate, like, one-on-one with them every single day. And then, he was teaching, living, loving. At the end of the day, what's he end up with? Someone denying knowing him, even betraying him. And, God's record of loving us through all that, and he's just consistently trying to bring us back to him into that one-on-one. And that should be, to me, at the end of the message, that was what I took away, was through everything and through all these nasty things that we have recorded in history, in the Bible, things that we've done to him that we know about that we don't want to tell anybody, at the end of the day, it's really proof that through anything we do, he keeps his word, and he really does want us to be back together again forever. And that's, man, if there's one thing we could remember, that would be a good one moving forward. Take away that fear, like you mentioned. Well, this week, one of our whole leaf? Do we have whole leaves? I think so. Probably somewhere. One of our whole life takeaways asked, what makes it hard to believe that this is good news for all people? And I thought, after I've just convinced myself, I've gone through this and I've learned a few things, and then I was like, that one just kind of smacked me right in the face. What makes it hard to believe that this is good news for all people? And again, I think it's just that, it's been over 2,000 years, and it seems like Jesus is no sooner to the second advent than when he left. So every generation, I'm almost 50. We've heard sermons. There's been revivals. There's been a convincing that all are living at the end of times, no matter when you were born. Matthew 24:6 and Jesus' own words are proof, this is how we know. You will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but at the end won't follow immediately. And it's like, well, thanks for nothing. What does exactly immediately mean? And then you think about God's timing, and, well, who knows what it means? So it's just, I think it's so hard to make us really believe. It's like, man, it feels good to be in Christmas. It feels good to be with family and friends and give gifts. And, my house has been smelling like holiday cookies. My girls are making cookies for the neighbors, and it's, it smells good here. I mean, it feels good. The tree looks good. We went and cut a tree, so it smells like Christmas in here. But at the end of the day, there's still that fear that you talked about earlier, Andy, that we just don't feel like, man, my grandparents told me the same thing. My parents told me the same thing. My grandparents are gone. My parents are getting old. I'm getting old. And it still seems like the same things that we've said as to why we should be prepared. It's going to be soon. And, all these things. And it just, nothing ever seems to move. And I think that's why it's hard to believe that it's good news for all people, because I think it just puts enough doubt in our minds that there's anything that, if all these people preaching for 2,000 years hasn't expedited anything or caused anything to change, what's Randy going to do about it 2,000 years later?
Yeah.
It's a hard mindset to get out of.
Well, I do think that there is a simplicity in this, and that's the part that sometimes we overlook. We think about, we've gotten in so many different discussions with other people who we try to match wits with. But then you sit down with a little child, right? You sit down with a little child, and all of a sudden, in a matter of a minute or so, they've literally taken you down to your knees, and you go, wow, I just got taken down by a fifth grader, because of a simple side of them, of their simple understanding of, what really is at stake when you discuss something, because the love of God is simple and yet still profound, that even a little child can understand it. We've talked about that before. But I think that's what this is that, these people heard it from the shepherds, and then they walked home and they said, nah. But then little things probably pricked their minds every step of the way until maybe 30 years later, all of a sudden that simple, profound understanding that they heard from the shepherds long ago started to make sense to them. That's the kind of cool stuff that goes on, I think, in God's mind.
I like that. So what about you? Is it hard to believe that this is good news for all people? I'd love to hear your take on this, especially during Christmas and around this subject, because I've heard so many people, and I mean, myself, I was a bah humbug person for a long, long time, and not necessarily against God, but just in the, the Christmas, all the commercialization, all that. And so I know that it makes it, when you're in that mindset, it's hard to take the rest of it and put it in some kind of positive light. It seems to just kind of cast a shadow on everything. So I'd be interested to hear how you come at this good news for all people. Obviously, we know it's good news, But if there's a way that you've been able to kind of put this all into perspective, if you send a voicemail, you heard Doug here, and thank you, Doug, again one more time. We'll play your voicemail, your comment, we'll read your comments. Just send them to 407-965-1607, voicemail or text. You can always email it to podcast@wholelife.church. I did get an email through randy@hospitalchurch.org the other day and said, I keep trying to send you an email at the podcast at wholelifechurch.org. And I'm like, no, it's wholelife.church, no .org. Podcast at wholelife.church. So if you need to send an email, it's that, not the .org. And we would love to share those. All right, our final thoughts are from Andy's message this past week. He said, it is all part of walking by faith with God and expecting the unexpected. When Jesus is wrapping up his time walking this earth, he again did the unexpected. He said to his followers, here's the plan. As I have loved you, go love. Love people into a lifelong friendship with God. Baptize them as my followers. Teach them to love. And I'm with you to the end of the age. My spirit will live within you. I have reconciled you to my Father. We are one family. You have been adopted, and all that I have is yours. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's just that little bit right there. Maybe that's that bathroom thing on your, the little bathroom, little clear tape, and put that on your mirror, or somewhere in your car, or put it in your briefcase, or tape it to your, your monitor at work. That's a pretty
Adoptions.
good. Yeah, those are some pretty good words to just be reminded of on a regular basis, and just realize that, from the beginning, from Adam and Eve on, he's never missed a promise yet.
Yeah, adoption's a great model, because adoption is a decision not by the one who's getting adopted.
That's
and
true.
Our first birth was a decision that was not ours, and just wondering if our second birth might be a decision that is beyond us.
Ooh, are we going to expound on
Ponder.
that?
Not tonight.
Ponder that one.
We're going to ponder that one.
This coming week, we got Greg Creek preaching.
That's true.
An Unexpected Life. He'll wrap the series up, and
Christmas Eve Candlelight Communion.
And that's on Christmas Eve, and we'll be talking about the wise men briefly.
5:30 p.m. Live and online. So come with your mask. Plan to social distance. Bring your hand sanitizer, all that good stuff, and see you at church.
If you want to participate in Foot Washing Live, you can come at 5 o'clock.
Oh, 5 o'clock.
5 and 5:30.
Okay.
And then 5:30 the actual program will begin.
And if you're still homebound, or you just can't make it, or it's going to be the way you do it, you can watch it online. There was one other question I had. Oh, I was just going to say, if you ponder on what Andy just said about the adoption, second coming, and you would like to send something, please voicemail or text 407-965-1607, podcast at wholelife.church. And I would love to do an entire follow-up episode just on that topic. So if you have them, let them fly. If you know someone that has one, send them the episode, share it, and just say, do you know who would love to hear your opinion? Randy, Andy, and Jeff. They would love it. And so all the information is here for them to send it. So Candlelight, Christmas Eve Communion, and I'll just say this, I do it every year. Don't miss it. If you can come, put on 2 masks, I don't know what you'd have to do. But really in person, it is absolutely, hands down, my family's and mine, it's our favorite program of the entire year. I could skip all 51 other church weeks and not miss this one, and I'd still feel pretty good about the year. And I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying it really is that much fun. And you're with other people, and there's a time to communicate with each other, and praises and different things that happen. It's a unique service that you really, really shouldn't miss. And then, of course, next week with Greg Creek. So, all right, next Tuesday, it's Speaking of Grace. As always, next Wednesday, we'll be back, hopefully with more input from you, and maybe on this whole adoption, second coming thing. I'm really curious about this. We got to make this happen somehow, because you just left a cliffhanger. You threw it out there, and I feel like it's on the fishing rod, and it's pulling across 2 lanes of traffic, and I feel like Frogger here. Like, should I go forward, or am I going to get a splat?
January, our stewardship series is a little different. It's stewarding the gospel. So maybe we'll bump into it there.
All right. Well, let's get a head start on this, because now I don't know. I'm probably not going to sleep tonight because my mind is going really, really fast at this. Thanks, Andy. But that's going to do it for this week. And so I'm just going to say now, Merry Christmas, because we won't talk to you until after Christmas next week. So have a great Christmas, and I hope that you find everything that you were hoping for under the tree in your hearts and from above. And join us next week here on Wednesday for episode 239. We look forward to seeing you. Have a great week and a wonderful Christmas.